What's up, what's up, what's up, guys? Welcome back to That's Right, I Said It. Um, Yesterday was a good episode. Had some couple of good comments about the K2, the Spice era. You know, it's one of those things we can laugh about it now for all of us who actually made it through that era and are still here to talk about it. That's a good thing. Um, had one of my guys telling me that he thought he got shot in the neck one time, was running down the road putting pressure on his neck because he thought one of his friends shot him in the neck. Obviously, he did not get shot in the neck. He thought he got shot in the neck because his brain was mush from the from the K2 Spice. And oh man, we've all been there. If you've messed with that stuff, thank God you made it through it. And I think everyone who's ever messed with any sort of K2 or any of the synthesized marijuana has probably got some very meaty, juicy stories to tell regarding that. Anyway, so today, guys, I will be down to my lowest dose of Kratom powder that I've been in probably a year, close to a year. I've completely skipped my morning dose of Kratom. I did that today. And today I'm on track to take just over 6 grams, just barely over 6 grams of Kratom powder for the whole day. And, you know, I've had some rough moments, because of it. The last several weeks, I've had several times where I just kind of had to sack up and be a man about it and be like, hey dude, you know, it is what it is. You did this to yourself. You put yourself in the situation. You know, it's gonna kind of suck to get out of it, but if you want to get out of it, you're gonna have to embrace the suck and just move on about your business. But so I want to talk about a term that I'm kind of coining right here now on the spot, because something that I have done a little bit of in my past is fasting, intermittent fasting. And this, of course, is related to food. But I've kind of learned that there are some parallels and some similarities with the way I've begun to use my Kratom. And what I mean by that is I'm coining the term intermittent fasting from Kratom. And basically it follows the same concept as just like you would fast from food. You would go for an extended period of time throughout your day. Let's say your day is 24 hours long. And let's say your Kratom use, you only use Kratom within, let's say, 6 hours out of a 24-hour day. Well, if there's only 6 hours out of the day that you're dosing on Kratom, then do the math. That means there's 18 hours of every day that you're not touching Kratom. And the whole idea about fasting from food is, you know, giving your system, your digestive system, a chance to heal, giving your liver, your pancreas, all those things a chance to kind of heal up and reset. Because every time we eat, you know, our digestive system kind of gets pounded with, you know, having to work extra hard to process and digest any food that we might be taking in. Not to mention that the average American, a lot of the foods and items that we're taking into our digestive system are not the best. So especially if it's a high carb sort of diet or you know, highly processed foods diet, then, you know, taking those breaks from just eating altogether can have major benefits for your digestive system. It's not dissimilar to what I'm talking about with Kratom here. And as of this morning, I've completely skipped my morning dose of Kratom. And, you know, several weeks ago, I was taking up to 5-6 capsules of Kratom first thing in the morning, right out of the gate. As soon as I got up, I was taking that amount. And when I started to decrease that, you know, to then 4 capsules in the morning, to then 3 capsules in the morning. Last week I did this. I cut it down where I was only taking 2 capsules. Then I just took 1 capsule in the morning. I had a few rough days because of it. You know, I felt little off, my mood was definitely not nearly as elevated because I didn't have the Kratom in my system. It was tough, but I kind of had to sack up and push through it. And now I'm happy to report today, I didn't take any Kratom, and it took me, I think, a little while longer to kind of wake up and get going on things. But it's one of those things where if you force yourself to get out there, and if you force yourself to be vigorous, go and work, even though you don't feel like it, you might not really feel like talking to and interacting with people. If you go and you just put yourself on autopilot and you just do it anyway, and you just start doing it, and you do your job, and you go talk to people, you go fulfill your responsibilities, you actually do begin to feel better. And then you just kind of forget. After a while, it took me a few minutes to get off of my ass and want to do something. But then once I did, and I started doing my job, I literally got to a point after several minutes where I had to remind myself, oh, shit, you didn't take Kratom this morning. Man, that's pretty good. And it's those little battles, those little humps that you have to get over throughout the day when you're tapering or coming off of something like Kratom. It's those little things that you kind of have to, little hurdles that you kind of have to leap over, that, believe it or not, if you force yourself to leap over them, it actually becomes a little easier, and you feel somewhat proud of yourself. So I got some things done this morning, and so I didn't let the fact that I skipped my morning Kratom dosage, I didn't let that keep me from doing my job and being responsible and being a responsible adult. So that really helped. So, obviously the idea is to cut down your Kratom consumption a little bit at a time. Every 3 or 4 days, you want to decrease your dosage by about a half gram or a gram. I've been doing it more like a gram. I've been doing it a little bit more aggressively than a half gram every 3 days, like is recommended. But that's also because I've had periods of time, especially on the weekends, where I've backslid a little bit, and I talked to you guys about that. Not so much this past weekend, I did well, but as far as the rest of it, I found myself during the week trying to gain back the ground that I lost on the weekend, and that's kind of what I've been doing, is pushing myself a little harder, being a little bit more aggressive about my taper. And it's getting to a point now where it's getting a little easier. I'm down, below 6 grams of Kratom per day. When you get to that point, the physical withdrawals become pretty significantly less. I will say that. So that is a bright spot that you guys can look to if you also are beginning to taper off of Kratom. So do the intermittent fasting from Kratom. Start cutting down. If you dose 3 times a day, start cutting down your morning dose first. What I plan to do is, starting tomorrow, I'll start cutting down my afternoon dose, which I take around 12 o'clock. So tomorrow I'll skip my morning dose, and then instead of taking 4 capsules at lunch like I just did a few minutes ago, tomorrow I'll only take 3 capsules at lunch. Then on Thursday, I'll skip my morning dose. Then I'll take only 2 capsules at lunch. On Friday, I'll skip my morning dose. I'll only take 2 capsules at lunch. And I'll keep doing this successively until I'm literally only taking Kratom once per day. And then that will be in the evenings when I get home, after I get my exercise in. I'll go for a jog, or, go in the garage and do a little exercise or something. And then I'll take an evening dose. Kind of remains to be seen if I'll, struggle a little bit with sleep. Sleep is definitely, for any of you who have gone through it, insomnia is definitely the worst part of any withdrawals from something like Kratom, in my opinion. Others may feel differently about that. In fact, drop a comment. Let me know what's the worst part of opiate or Kratom withdrawals for you guys. For me, it's kind of the night times, because I just can't freaking stand to not sleep at night. I can't stand it. And the feelings of, just not being able to relax, the restless legs, the discomfort of having to constantly hypertrophy and just tense your muscles up, and it's just a horrible thing. But once you get down below a certain amount, that starts to subside somewhat. What I've been having happen recently is at night I've been having, and I've heard Joey Talks speak about this, almost like a craving, like an empty sort of, but uncomfortable feeling, like in my stomach area. And it's almost like a craving. It's almost like when you're hungry, except there's a little bit more of an emotional component attached to it. Like it's kind of depressing, I guess, because you know that it's your body's just saying, hey, give me some Kratom, give me some Kratom. And I know that's what it is, but when you're going through a taper method, obviously you can't give your body what it wants. But cut it down your morning and your afternoon dosage, slowly but surely, until you get to a point where you're only taking it once a day. And then, by next week, by the end of this week, I plan to be 5 to 6 capsules a day, would be somewhere around maybe 3.5, 4 grams. So by the end of this week, I plan on being down to roughly about 3 to 4 grams of Kratom per day. And that's a pretty significant decrease, especially when you consider that a few months ago, I was taking a couple of MITs per day, which there's no telling how much, Kratom alkaloid and metrogenine I was consuming at that point. So it's been a tough ride. It's been, somewhat of a challenge, but hey, exercise, cut it down little by little, take your vitamins, create things, do things that you can fill your time with other than taking the Kratom. If you like music, do music. A lot of people talk about journaling and, kind of keeping a diary and making sure you're kind of getting your feelings out and stuff like that. I don't necessarily do that myself, but I'm one of those people that has a wonderful partner, my wife. We're like best friends. We're like this, and she knows everything about me, including my Kratom use, including the fact that I'm coming off of Kratom. So she knows all that. And so she's definitely a soundboard for me. I tell her everything. She knows kind of my ups and downs, the roller coaster associated with that. And so for me, I don't really find that the journaling and the meditation and stuff is necessary, because I am able to get it out in that way by communicating with my wife, my soulmate. But if you don't have that partner and that understanding partner that you can confide in, you may find something like that helpful, to keep a journal, kind of a diary, writing down your thoughts, writing down what your struggles are for that day, what you intend to do to get past it, those sort of things. So that's definitely something you might want to look into. So I thought that I'd share another at least couple of stories about the K2, because that's one of those things that a lot of people can relate to, and it's illegal now. I don't know of any places you can get this stuff now, but it was less than 10 years ago that it was on every corner. It was in gas stations, it was in head shops, all these different places. And so it seems to be throughout the drug use community, it seems to be a topic that people really are like, oh yeah, that stuff. Oh man, people have stories about it. So this story took place at the same time I was coming off of a divorce, rooming, but I was living in the same house as my brother at that time, and it's something we would smoke from time to time. And we had this stuff called Zero Gravity. I still remember the name of it, Zero Gravity. And this industry was so unregulated. I talked about yesterday how you would smoke it, you wouldn't really feel anything. Okay, well, I need to take another hit. Then you would take another similar size hit, and then it would just put you into another dimension. So I think the way they sprayed it with the chemical that they used, I don't recall what the name of the chemical was. It started with a J. I do remember that. Obviously, it was not THC, but I think the way they sprayed the flower that you actually smoked just, wasn't well regulated. You might get a certain section of it, they might spray heavier the chemical on a certain section of it, while another section that got sprayed down barely got misted with it. And in my opinion, I think that's kind of what happened to what we were experiencing there. I'm at a disc golf course, and there's a guy behind my car throwing a disc. Hopefully this dude doesn't hit my car. No, he did good. All right. I used to love disc golf. Anyway, sorry, I kind of got off track there, but so my nephew, who at the time was, late teens, how old was he? 2013. That would have been 10 years ago. He's 29 now, so he would have been about a 19-year-old guy at this time. And anyway, we would smoke this zero gravity. Well, I smoked it one time, and this was one of the times where I had a really, really bad experience with it. And again, we were in the studio. We spent a lot of time there. I was doing a lot of music at this time. And I was walking across the floor. I had just hit the spice. Walking across the floor, and I noticed that my feet were dragging. And then I look up and I noticed I was hanging on to like this bunk bed that my brother out in his garage had kind of turned his garage into a bunk bed, for my nephew. And then he had the computer that we used to edit music on and stuff up under the bunk bed, so you could slide up under the bunk bed in a chair and work on a computer. And I found myself hanging on to this bunk bed, and I realized that I was clenching it because I was afraid I was going to fall. And it occurred to me that for the last 5-10 seconds, it was one of those things where you kind of lose time for a second. You know how you lose time and then you realize, oh, damn, I've been doing this for the last 10 seconds, 15 seconds. I realized that I was literally moving across that room like a 90-year-old man who was feeble. Yeah. I was like a 37-year-old guy at this time, in good shape. I was in no way, shape, or form an old man, but that's how I was moving across this room because I was so fucked up on this spice. And I remember that same evening, a little while later, I don't know if I had hit it again or if this was the exact same time. But I remember telling my nephew, like, look, I'm really screwed up, man. I'm really screwed up. I'm going to have to lay down. And I actually asked my nephew, I laid down on the couch and like, hey, can you bring me some water? Can you bring me some water? He brought me some water. And again, we don't have this kind of relationship. So the fact that I'm doing this, he was like, whoa, my uncle, he's worried about me, and I literally begged him not to leave me. I was like, dude, don't leave me. Don't leave me. Please don't leave me. I didn't want him to walk out of the room. I was afraid if he walked out of the room, I was just going to die right there on the couch. And that stuff was horrible for that. Just putting you so far out of your comfort zone, out of your brain. I mean, that was the kind of stuff that made the most hardened drug addicts throw up their hands and be like, okay, stop this shit. Get me out of this shit right now. But it's too late. Once you take it, once it starts to affect your brain, there's no turning back. I mean, all you can do is just ride the wave and hope that the trip is quick, and sometimes it was, sometimes it was a little longer. I found that usually by 10 minutes, I was out of it, and I was kind of at least starting to come down to a point where I was starting to feel some sort of resemblance of normal again. But that first 5 or 10 minutes after you got a really good hit of that was horrifying. So that was one instance. Obviously, I came out of it no worse for wear. Another time was when my wife and I shared yesterday how it had already been banned in North Carolina, so we had driven to South Carolina to get some. Well, we did that, and we came back and we smoked some, had another bad trip. I probably had 8 to 10 of these the whole time that I was smoking it. And you would have thought I would have learned my lesson. Obviously, I didn't learn my lesson. And we get back to the house, I take a hit of it. It starts to really affect me in a bad way, and to the point where I start freaking out on my wife again, telling her, I was afraid I was going to die. I felt like I was going to die, and there's a real, like, when your body starts to react that way to something, there's a real panic component that goes along with it. And I definitely was experiencing that really badly. And I just remember having to get into the shower, because we decided, geniuses, that if I get into a shower and turn the water on cold or get some water running over me, it'll kind of pop me out of it and pop me back to reality. So I remember getting in the shower, and my wife got in the shower with me. It was just like rubbing my back and like, it's okay, so you're fine, I'll take care of you, this and that and the other. And the water didn't help. Nothing helped. I was just too fucked up. The only thing that helped was letting a few minutes pass me by. And then finally I started to kind of come out of it. And I said yesterday I was going to share the time that happened that actually caused me to put down the spice and say, no more, not doing this shit anymore. And it was that time that I had to get in the shower, and I thought I was dying. I thought I was gonna die as a 38-year-old man, because you read these horror stories where people were dying on this shit. And my dude, Real is Rare, mentioned, somebody that had died from it when he was in a halfway house, when he was younger. He was saying how people were fiending for it there, and there was people that had some really bad experiences with it, and one person who even died. And you heard about that stuff with this spice. And so, we're playing Russian roulette every time we smoke it, and that. So then when you have one of those really bad trips and really bad experiences, you start having those thoughts like, is this it? Is this it? Have I spun the wheel too many times? Have I spun the chamber too many times? Is this the time that's going to kill me? And thank God, fortunately, he had a bigger plan for me, and that never happened. But after getting out of the shower that night, and I'm going to wrap this up, I'm at almost 23 minutes. After getting out of the shower that night, went out to my car, because we had been to South Carolina, driven 4 hours just to get this stuff, came back, and we were broke at this time. Now my wife and I are really well off. At that time, when we first got married, we were broke as the 10 Commandments, man. We didn't have any money, barely 2 dimes to rub together, and here we are driving 4 hours to get some spice. That was me, by the way, that was that was pushing that agenda. And even though we had spent probably $100 or more on all this spice, because we drove 4 hours to 2 hours one way and 2 hours back just to get it. So obviously we were going to get our money's worth while we were there. You couldn't buy it in North Carolina anymore, where I live. So after I got out of the shower and I started to kind of come down and come back to, I went out to my car, got the rest of the spice, opened up the bag, and I went over the top of the toilet, 2 whole bags of spice, dumped it down the toilet, flushed every bit of it down the toilet. That's how bad the spice scared me. I was like, fuck this. I'm not gonna be one of those, I'm not dying off of this shit. And it scared me that bad that last time. And it took 8 or 10 times of me going through one of those bad trips to really get to a point where I was like, I need to stop fucking with this. I need to stop being so stupid, and I had a son, I couldn't imagine leaving my son without a father and dying over some bullshit like that. So, thank God that he had me do that, and thank God that that's happened to me a few times in my life. There's been a few times in my life where I felt like I was going over the edge with some sort of drug use, and I did something drastic like that to just never mess with it again. And after I dumped that stuff down that toilet that night, we never touched spice again. and that's been almost 10 years. I've never touched it since. We never went back to South Carolina. We never did it. You know, I knew that I was going to have to, you know, I didn't go completely sober and clean, but I knew that was the last time I was going to smoke that stuff. I'll tell you that. But anyway, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment. Let me know what you're going through, where you're at with your Kratom use. If you're a person that's gotten a little out of control with it, or you feel like you're taking too much, you've probably already learned that Kratom can have the opposite effect of what you actually want it to have, and the original reason that you started taking it. So you may need to kind of back off of it, reset your tolerance. If you want to come off of it altogether, if that's something you feel like you need to do, you can use these methods that I'm describing to do that. And if you're wanting to just reset your tolerance so that you can start getting the good effects from it again, and you know, and keep the amount that you're taking down here as opposed to up here, instead of just stacking and stacking and stacking and stacking the effects every day. And it's not healthy to do that. Everything has to be in moderation, guys, and that's just important. So anyway, appreciate you tuning back in, and none of this shit's planned, man. I'm just talking. You guys are your friends. You know, you're people who have also struggled with drug addiction, and that's what how I'm talking to you guys. So, you know, sorry that there's not all these fancy edits and stuff, and I've, you know, got a bunch of information that I'm reading out to you, know, stuff like that. The information's all in here, and a lot of it has come from experience. A lot of it has come from the school of hard knocks, of just living the life of a drug addict, and always having to have something to kind of, you know, keep myself in that altered state of mind that drugs give you. And that's me. I'm guilty of that. And if I can share, as a 46-year-old man, some of my experiences with these younger people who are just beginning to face this struggle in their lives, then that's what I'm looking to do. And I feel like that you know, it's been time well spent if I'm able to do that. So anyway, appreciate you guys watching, and I'll see you next time. All right, peace.